All right, everybody. Welcome back to another Art with Errol's podcast. This is the Monday check-in. It is September 1st. Let's go. All right, everybody. Welcome. It's been another week, y'all. We accomplished pretty much everything we set out to accomplish last week. We did our podcast as normal. We got our game streams in that we could. And we also had, I did the emote that I had talked about before, where we made the emote for Twitch. So I got my first emote done up on the channel. You should be able to access that one if you become a tier 1 subscriber, which is awesome to even be able to start making emotes. And I know I might be a ways away from getting a lot of subscribers and stuff, but if you ever feel like supporting your boy, go to the Twitch Art with Errol channel and you can give your boy a prime sub or something like that. That would be awesome. I'm still gonna work on emotes, so I'm gonna try to get four done for tier 1. Because that's what you're allowed to have. And I think tier 1 would just be good for right now. It's just to get 4 emotes for that. And then I want to do maybe a couple free ones for just being a part of the channel or whatever. So they gave a free one, and that one's on. That's the little hype one with the little yellow guy, and he's got the hype sign up. That was cool because they basically opened it up for folks to be able to receive subscribers, which I really love that. I feel like, the platforms, I think YouTube should do it. They haven't done anything like that. But lowering that standard down, because if people want to support the creator, they should have the opportunity to support the creator. I think that's awesome that they actually opened that up for more folks to be able to receive subscribers and bits and stuff like that. So really, really cool. Really cool that they did that. So last week, I think, I'm doing my recap. For those who are new, I always do a little short recap in the beginning, and then we kind of dive into what we're going to talk about this week. So, just recapping last week, I think it was pretty good. As far as numbers wise, my numbers are always up and down. I think, as we continue to do this and continue to be consistent and continue to do the practices that are going to help us get better at making content for YouTube, we'll get more folks involved. That's just my belief, but only time will tell. We'll see, because you're on this journey and you guys are watching my journey on this social media adventure. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about the role of community in success. And this is a big one, right? Because think about it. You can't be successful without the people around you, without your community. That's why community building is so important, y'all. So, yeah. I think people kind of overlook their community sometimes, or maybe they just don't, they forget, you should show appreciation for your community too. Those type of things. And there's ways of doing that, with giveaways and, just remembering to thank your audience, or if they're really excited about a certain game or something that you if you're a game streamer and they want you to play, being willing to, give the community what they want, Success isn't just about grinding it alone, y'all. It really isn't. It's about, surrounding yourself with good people and building a good community. So I think that is the main thing of why community matters, is having a good community, And it's in some cases, this may not be, practical some folks, they just, can just post things and they're just going to receive, viewership no matter what. But if you're like a game streamer, having a good community is kind of important, I think. At least that's my belief, you know. Everybody can differ on that, because the effort, is not, it's not a solo thing, man. You gotta be willing to, work with the people that are watching your content. That's your community. It's a collective effort, right? Collective support. Um, Community provides you accountability. It gives you encouragement, and it gives you perspective. Success stories are rarely a solo journey. I mean, there are some solo folks that, make it out there, but that's not everyone's story. And I think, the folks that do have that solo journey, that's, just a unique situation, probably, Um, so, I think, you know, with me, just trying to get the community going has always been a struggle for me. I get folks that come in, and it's important to interact with them. So you want to kind of chat with them. Obviously, if they're being negative, you know, if you interact with them and they're still negative, and you're trying to say, hey, well, I understand your perspective or whatever, but they're still just being a hater, then that person is obviously not built for your community. So you want to just leave it alone. And we talked about that. How do you handle someone that's just being disgruntled and just trying to attack your channel? You can either ban them or just ignore them. There's several different ways of handling that type of situation, but keeping it in the positive aspect and trying to interact with the folks that are at least being good participants. And it's okay to have disagreements. We talked about that too. It's okay to have a disagreement about a topic. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having disagreements when someone's outright attacking you or just, oh, you're stupid or anything like that. They're coming at you the wrong kind of way, then that person is probably not built for your community, and you just leave them alone, or if they get really bad, you ban them, So, feedback. That's another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, because your community gives you feedback. Reviewing some of the comments is always important, because you want to kind of get some of that initial feedback of what they thought about whatever you created, and kind of, shaping your way forward on your creation journey too. Knowing what is good and what's not good is also helpful. Because your community can only give you feedback. People that participate. If people are watching your stuff, I get a lot of folks that watch. I'll see numbers go up to in the hundreds sometime, or sometimes I'll hit 1,000, and it's but they don't leave any comments. So, and a lot of those views could be very short time views. They watched a portion of it or whatever, and they give you no feedback. So that in itself can be feedback, in the sense that maybe it just wasn't good enough to get the reactions that you wanted. So just got to work on it for next time, making that type of content, because it obviously had something that brought attention to the people. It just didn't grasp them the way they wanted to. So community is really the thing. Is getting them involved. How do you get the people involved? So, and it's always a struggle. That's always going to be a struggle. There's going to be folks that just watch. Sometimes they'll watch the content and they just won't leave any kind of comment. They may like it or they may not like it. So it's almost kind of like you're creating in a vacuum and you're stuck in that loop. Creating, to an audience that actually participate, that also will push your content to the more folks. The more participation you get, whether it's just a comment or just an emoji they drop or a like, all those interactions all drive your content to more people. So that's also important too. Um, and how do we build our community? You got to keep making content. You got to keep trying to level up your content. That's what I believe. You know, you got to keep trying to get better. And you always say, to review your stuff, take a look at it, try to figure out how can I make this better next time, and do it, for the next one. Make small changes. Set small goals. Like maybe I'll try this next time, and just keep trying different things until you figure out the formula for what's gonna give you that success with the videos. Because it's a challenge. It's not easy. It's not easy. And my biggest thing is always to be consistent. I think I found that more the more consistent I am with uploading and creating content, the more people will get involved in it or will view my content. So that's always been a plus since we started about this time last year. Around this time last year, we started becoming more consistent with our uploads, with our content we're creating. So, and to me, I'm definitely seeing more viewership, because like my channels are more active, and that's a big thing. The more active it is, obviously you don't want to be posting too many videos back to back, but at least once a day, or maybe every now and then, 2 videos a day or something like that. That always will help you in kind of building your community, because the more people can see you and say, oh, this guy actually uploads all the time, and they start watching, and then they oh, I'm gonna participate. So then they start participating. Maybe you got to find a way to draw them in, and that's, like I said, it's a big challenge. It's never easy. Never been easy for me. And some people have that attraction, that they're just like, oh, they just draw people in. I may not always have that appeal. So like, because I'm older. I did my 20 years in the Navy, and now I'm trying out content creation on the side of doing work here and there. So people may not always relate to me in this sense, especially like the younger generation. They may not relate because I come from a different era, right? That's always the kind of gap. You got to kind of like figure out, how do I fill that gap, or how do I become more appealing to everyone so that you can gain more folks that want to join your community. Looking at things in different aspects, different lights. I really like how some people do their content, and I always try to think like, how can I kind of implement something like that? Because you don't never really, like I said, you don't never really want to steal from other folks. You just kind of want to like, take an idea and maybe make it your own, in a different kind of way. It's challenging, because everybody's doing content, and if you should be watching other content creators, especially ones that are in your niche, is what people like to say, or field, or whatever you want to call the type of content you're creating, right? You want to kind of look at the same folks and say, okay, well, they doing it this way. How can I do it different? How can I do it my own way and make my own version that will be successful? And that's the challenge. You just got to try different things. You got to keep messing around with the way you do it. Restructure your formula. Try maybe wording things different. Try speaking different. I've been trying that all this time to get better at speaking, and being able to be more clear, and trying not to say the words that like trigger people, or make them like not want to listen to you. It's challenging. It is challenging. Probably should take a speech class, huh? um, some pitfalls that we can avoid. Relying too much on validation, that could be a pitfall, right? Um, Building a crowd instead of a real community, that could be another one. Like you have a crowd of folks that just, like I said, you're kind of stuck in that little vacuum, and you're not building a real community that like people are connecting or being involved. Um, Forgetting to nurture the people, that's a big one too, right? Just showing appreciation, not appreciation. Showing appreciation for those who show up for you. That's To me, that's a real big one too. You want to figure out a way to do that, whether that's in giveaways or just saying thank you at the end of the stream. Finding a way to thank the folks for supporting you. That's always important. Because you can't have that good relationship or good rapport without at least being thankful for them being there. Appreciative of their time, because they could be watching somebody else or doing something else. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to touch on today. This might be a little bit shorter of a podcast today, which is fine. I have these long ones, kind of rant a little more, but I always like to talk a little bit about content creation, and then dive into what I'm doing for the week. So I think we can kind of head into that. What we got going on this week. Shinobi came out, and I was thinking I would just, play through that, do a playthrough of Shinobi, which is more of a side-scrolling kind of platformer style game. It's an old school style game, but it's it's a new game. So I thought that would be a fun one to try to play through. I was thinking that would be, our next adventure because we got time until Battlefield 6 comes out. It doesn't come out till October 10th. So I think we could probably get through Shinobi, and on the side, I think maybe playing a little bit of the finals, because I kind of been liking the finals. It's just a fun game to play. Not a lot of stress. People don't even use mics, so you just kind of go with the flow and just try to run with them, And that's just kind of how it is in like most of these shooter games nowadays. You don't get like active communication of like helping your teammates out kind of deal. That's not what they use it for. If they use their mic, that's definitely not what they use it for. So playing through Shinobi, maybe playing some finals on the side, and that will be our gaming adventure. And then for the art, like I said, I want to continue to make emotes. So the next emote we're going to do is to get them out of here emote. I've already got that kind of sketched out, so I got an idea on how I'm going to make that emote happen, and then we'll make it in Illustrator. I'll do a video of it making it in Illustrator and just talk over it. I think that was pretty good for last Friday. So that's the plan for this Friday, is to do the same thing. I'll just make it in Illustrator and color it and everything in Illustrator, and then turn it into an emote, and then get that up onto the Twitch channel. So that will be the way forward for our art videos, and then we'll come up with the next one, which I was thinking of doing, like the kind of like what they have on Twitch. To have like the faces, like my face, but maybe I'll do it in like I don't know, a cartoony style or something like that, and we'll figure that out for next week. But I think one of those, like maybe kind of looking a certain way or something, I don't know. Just kind of coming up with ideas. I was trying to think of things that relate to what I do on stream, and that would be great for the stream. So if you have ideas, like I always say, never. Always. You can always reach out on the podcasting channel, and just comment, say what you think. If you have an idea to hand out, that's always great, and I'll look at it and try to see if I can work that in or not. Also for like any type of artwork, So, and you can always request a drawing on my website, which is artwitherrol.com. And this podcast is also broadcasted on every major podcasting channel, basically Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and then we're on YouTube. So, and then it's also linked to my website. So you can also find the podcast on the website. So we are going to go ahead and do us a little wrap up, I think, because I'm kind of happy with just a 20-minute episode this week. It's a holiday, y'all, so football's about to start, and I'm excited for that. Hopefully the Saints will have a better year this year, but the preseason didn't look too hot, so I don't know, man. My Saints. Just a little motivation, y'all. Remember, success is bigger than just you. It's about us. Community building, communities build futures. That's a good saying right there. Communities build futures. Let's go with that. I like that. So, yeah, until the next one, y'all, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. We'll kind of touch bases on next week. I'll have a different little idea for a topic. Maybe my wife will join in on that one. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Until next time, you know what to do. I'm out of here, y'all.